Snezjana Belgique?
She's not here.
Stop clock.
Gary. It's going to be a long night. Mickey Mouse? Do we have a Mickey Mouse in the audience? Carla Golya Milevich.
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
Carla Golja Milevoj.
This is the comedy act, by the way. Bojana Vinjevich.
Bojana Vidnjević. Okay, who's here?
Stop throwing my crowd.
Okay, this is the comedy show.
Please. Visnja Sveko.
Višnja Šveko.
I'm going to take it home with me. That's it. I'm finished. Mia McCann.
Katka Senta. One more announcement. For those of you who haven't yet collected their certificates of attendance, please contact Mrs. Diana Purpi-Đurić, our secretary, after this. Thank you and enjoy your evening.
Shakespeare, as you've never heard him before.
Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear William.
Because of course, not tomorrow, but the next day is William's birthday. His 448th, to be precise. Remember it in 2 days' time. Today in Stratford, they have already remembered it. If you're in Stratford today, you would have gone on the huge procession through town in which ambassadors from various countries and diplomats and all the great and the good in the acting profession would be standing there unfurling flags. We did it one year. We stood there and unfurled a flag and then followed the procession through the town to the Holy Trinity Church, where in the back of the church there is Shakespeare's grave, and you worship there, you bow, you lay your flowers, you say whatever prayer in whatever God you believe in, or no God at all sometimes, and then leave and have the most tremendous party afterwards. You can see it online. They often record the event for everybody. So it's a great day, a good day to be doing Shakespeare as you've never heard him before. Shakespeare, the author of so many famous plays, Hamlet, King Lear, The Merchant of Venice, I can't say it.
You can.
No, I can't
Yes, you
say
can.
it.
Go on,
No,
try. You
no,
can. Go on, try.
I can't say
It's
it.
easy.
No, it isn't. Look, the Scottish play.
No.
No, the Scottish play has a curse on it. Nobody can say, if you're on stage or in an official context, you cannot say the name of
Try.
no,
Mac.
I can't.
Mac.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Mac.
Something horrible will happen.
Go on.
Like something will go wrong.
It'll be fine, I promise.
Are you sure?
Yes. Mac.
Mac.
Beth.
Beth.
Macbeth.
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 There.
Well,
No.
there we are. Nothing can possibly go wrong now. Excellent. You said nothing could go wrong.
That didn't include falling off the stage.
Well, nothing actually happened much when I fell off the stage.
Good.
So, there is a curse on Macbeth, actually. So they say. But do you know why? Why is there a curse on the Scottish play? So much so that no real actor or director would dare to say the name of the play on a stage like this, on an evening like this. All sorts of reasons.
During the play's first performance, Hal Berridge, the boy playing Lady Macbeth, died backstage, and rumour has it Shakespeare had to play the part instead.
And in a production in Amsterdam in 1672, the actor playing Macbeth used a real dagger and killed the actor playing Duncan on stage.
During rival performances of the same play in New York in 1849, a riot broke out and over 20 people died.
And in John Gielgud's 1942 production, 3 actors died. The actor playing Duncan and 2 of the witches. And the set designer committed suicide. So, you know, that's the sort of tradition which leads people to think that there's a curse on Macbeth. No matter what happened in other plays, if somebody's playing A Midsummer Night's Dream, our son Ben, whom several of you might know, he's a professional actor, he was playing Demetrius in The Midsummer Night's Dream last year. At one point in the just in the horse play that actors have, somebody swings a bag against one of his ribs. There happens to be a bottle in the bag. It breaks one of his ribs. It punctures his lung. He is in hospital with blood drained from his lung. And this is in A Midsummer Night's Dream. He's fine now. But if that had happened in Macbeth, imagine what people would have said. And that's what they do.
So why is there a curse there?
Well, there's a great deal of violent action in Macbeth, and a lot of it takes place in the dark, so accidents are likely to happen.
And it's the shortest tragedy, so it's easier and cheaper to put on. And people cut corners in rehearsals and safety procedures.
And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, you see. Actors expect something to happen, and of course it does, therefore, as a result.
But we have to get you out of your quandary.
Yeah, no, I mean, the curse is now upon us, so you have to solve the problem of the curse. You have to get rid of its power, and there are ways of doing this, as follows.
Okay, leave the room or the space you are in. Close the door behind you. Turn around 3 times. 1,
2. I'm getting very dizzy here.
3. Swear.
Knickers. It's the worst word I know.
Knock on the door and ask to be let back in.
Please, may I come back in?
No.
You're on your own if you don't.
Do come in.
Yeah. And if there's no time, that is actually what happens. Actors will do all of that in order to get rid of the curse.
Yes.
And if there's no time to do all that, simply quoting Hamlet's famous phrase, "Angels and ministers of grace defend us." And that will do it. The curse is gone. I have said it. The curse has now gone.
Excellent.
We're all right.
We can carry on.
Right, so let's get on with the show. Now, Hamlet, King Lear, all of these. You've heard the plays. I suppose some of you many times. If you've not heard them on stage, you've seen them on screen or somewhere. You've all heard Shakespeare. But, of course, one of the biggest movements in recent times is an attempt to produce Shakespeare using the accents of the time, of the years around 1600. You all hear Shakespeare in modern English, usually in received pronunciation, or perhaps some local dialect maybe, but a modern dialect, perhaps in American English or something. But since about 2004, people have been putting on productions in which Shakespeare is read, is spoken on stage, in the accents of around the year 1600. People have reconstructed the accents of those times. It started at Shakespeare's Globe in 2004, where they put on an original pronunciation production of Romeo and Juliet in that accent. And then it's so successful, they did another production the next year, Troilus and Cressida, and since then, over the last 5-6 years, there have been productions all over the world. Last year in America, there was a production of Midsummer Night's Dream in original pronunciation, then of Hamlet. This year, there's Twelfth Night gone on, and Cymbeline, and it will carry on in that way. And there's now a website, originalpronunciation.com, where you can actually follow what's going on in the world of OP, as it's called. So what was it like? Well, how do we know? Well, one of the reasons you know that in how to reconstruct the accent is because you work out the rhymes that don't work in modern English that must have worked in Shakespeare's time. You look at the puns that don't work in modern English that must have worked in Shakespeare's time. You go to the commentaries that were written by people at the time who actually describe how the pronunciation was in 1600. You put it all together and it sounds very different from what you might expect. So here are the opening lines of Henry V, the opening chorus. The chorus comes to the front of the stage. It's at the Globe. He talks about the theatre that they're attempting to replay the Battle of Agincourt in, and here is what he says. Hilary will do it in modern English, I will do the lines in OP.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention.
A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene.
A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene.
Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars.
Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars.
And at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword and fire crouch for employment.
Then at his heels, laced in like hounds, should famine, sword and fire crouch for employment. It's a lovely accent, isn't it? It's an accent which native speakers tend to recognise bits of. I used to go around Shakespeare's Globe when Romeo was on and ask people whether they'd ever heard anything like it before, and people would always say, oh yes, we speak like that where we come from. Wherever they came from, they would say that. So people from the west of England, for example, would notice the R after the vowels, and they'd say, we speak like that in west of England. And people from London, for example, Cockney speakers would notice the dropped H's, and say, oh, we drop our H's where we come from. And so you can go around the world and everybody will recognise bits of that accent. But nobody actually around the world today says, for instance, invention for invention, or musician for musician, and so on. That is very definitely a 1600 type of pronunciation. So it's rather interesting, isn't it? So when you actually hear a Shakespeare play, one of the things that you notice more than anything else is when the rhymes don't work, simply because the language has changed. Like this extract, for instance. In the middle of A Midsummer Night's Dream, Puck is chasing the two lovers around the forest, Lysander and Demetrius. And at one point he shouts out mockingly,
Thou coward, art thou bragging to the stars, telling the bushes that thou lookest for wars, and wilt not come?
Those lines are supposed to rhyme. Stars and wars. They don't rhyme now. It's awkward, it feels uncomfortable. But in Shakespeare's time it did. Though cold, art thou bragging to the stars, telling the bushes that thou look'st for wars, and wilt not come? Stars and wars were perfect rhymes in those days. Or take puns, for instance. In Troilus and Cressida, there's a lovely sequence. I don't know whether you know the play very well. It's not one of the most performed plays. But in it, this is the story of the Trojan Wars, the Greeks and the Trojans. And in the story, there's a brutish character called Ajax. He's a bit slow, but he's got a lot of strength, and he fights, of course, very brilliantly. And at one point, a camp follower, somebody who goes around mocking the soldiers, really, a man called Thersites, talks to Achilles about Ajax. And this is how the dialogue proceeds. Now, the first time round, we'll do it in modern English. And Thersites says, talking about Ajax, "You see him there, do you?
Aye, what's the matter?
Nay, look upon him.
So I do, what's the matter?
Nay, but regard him well.
Well, why I do so?
But yet you look not well upon him, for whomsoever you take him to be, he is Ajax."
I know that, fool.
Aye, but that fool knows not himself. That's the dialogue. Listen again. Whomsoever you take him to be, he is Ajax. That's supposed to be an insult. How can you insult somebody by just saying what his name is? It doesn't make sense. It's like saying, for whomsoever David Criswell is supposed to be, he's David Criswell. Well, that's not an insult, that's a tautology. What you have to know is that in Elizabethan English, the word Ajax was pronounced Ajax. You now have to know that in Elizabethan English there was a word Jakes, Jakes, and it meant a lavatory, a shithouse. It was a really rude, to us these days, it would be quite a rude word. So what Thersites is actually saying is he's punning on the name Ajax and actually calling him a shithouse. For whomsoever you take him to be, he is a Jakes. That's what he is. He's a Jakes. That's his name, but he's also a toilet at the same time. It's a really insulting expression. And now, if you know anything of Irish English, modern Irish English, the word Jakes is still used there. So in Irish English today, you'll hear people saying, "I'm going to the Jakes. I'm going to the Jakes," meaning I'm going to the toilet. So the usage still continues. So there we are, you see. We've got an original pronunciation. I did promise you Shakespeare as you've never heard him before, and unless you happen to have heard one of those OP productions, that's probably a new experience for most of you. If you want to hear more examples of this, you can find them online at the original pronunciation site, or just 2 or 3 weeks ago, the British Library produced a CD of Shakespeare in original pronunciation, which is available for anybody. Now, when you say Shakespeare as you've never heard him before, it also means something different. It also means that you might have heard the play, but not noticed something that's important in the play. And just to illustrate this, before this evening gets totally silly and out of control, let's just give you a sort of serious point, which is to draw your attention, if you've never had it drawn to you before, about the difference, the important difference between thou and you in Shakespearean English. Because thou and you has disappeared from English very largely, people tend to disregard it when you're going back to Shakespeare's time. For most other languages, there's a distinction between thou and you, isn't there? A sort of tu and who and all the rest of it that you have in your languages as well. But in Shakespeare's time, that thou and you distinction was important, and it meant something. Normally, noble people would say you to each other, even if they were being quite intimate. If we were nobles, I would call Hilary you, and
I would call you, you.
But if we were working class, then I would call you thou.
Thou varlet.
And you should call me thou. So therefore, if a noble starts to use thou, instead of you talking to another noble, then that means something. It could mean a tremendous insult. If you know the play Twelfth Night, Sir Toby Belch at one point advises Sir Andrew Aguecheek and says, if you want to fight this guy, insult him, call him thou 3 times. That'll really get him upset, he says. Or thou could be a marker of exceptional intimacy, a bit like in French, you know, they have that tutoyer, I mean the point at which you stop calling the person you want to get off with vous and start calling her or him tu. That's very significant. It's the same in Shakespeare's time. And to illustrate it, a brief example from Much Ado About Nothing. Beatrice and Benedick. Do you know the story? Remember the story? At the beginning, Beatrice hates Benedick. Benedick hates Beatrice. They have a long-standing tradition of hating each other. The rest of the group that they're part of say, let's try and sort this out. This is a subplot in the play. And at one point, the males hide behind a hedge. Benedick is hiding behind a hedge, listening to these male friends of his talking about Benedick, and they say, do you know Beatrice loves him? And Benedick can't believe it. And a little later, the girls have Beatrice hiding behind a hedge, and the girls say, in her hearing, do you know Benedick loves her? And she can't believe it. But they're both delighted. And so a little later, they meet up and have a conversation. At the same time, of course, there's another plot going on in the play, where Hero is being defamed by Claudio, much to Beatrice's disgust. So at this point in the play, there's a little dialogue that takes place when Benedick and Beatrice meet for the first time and sound each other out. Now, what you should listen out for is the switch between thou and you throughout this dialogue. We'll say it in a fairly normal way, but at certain points we'll kind of emphasize the thou and the you. What you'll notice is that Benedick is like a little male puppy, because that's what men are, really, deep down, is desperately trying to get Beatrice's affection. Beatrice, being a normal, cool woman, is that all right? Yeah, is sort of being a bit offish. So Benedick uses thou to Beatrice, but Beatrice doesn't use thou to Benedick. But you'll also notice that at certain points, Benedick changes from thou to you. And afterwards I'll explain why. So when he comes, Beatrice is very upset because she's heard about Hero being defamed by Claudio. Lady Beatrice, have you wept all this while?
Yea, and I will weep a while longer.
I will not desire that.
You have no reason, I do it freely.
Surely, I do believe your fair cousin is wronged. Your fair cousin is wronged.
Oh, how much might the man deserve of me that would right her?
Is there any way to show such a friendship?
A very even way, but no such friend.
May a man do it?
It is a man's office, but not yours.
He's been rebuffed there, so he stays with you. I do love nothing in the world as well as you. It is not that strange.
As strange as the thing I know not. It were as possible for me to say I love nothing so well as you, but believe me not, and yet I lie not. I confess nothing, nor I deny nothing. I am sorry for my cousin.
By my sword, Beatrice, and now he goes for it. Thou lovest me.
Do not swear and eat it.
He's been rebuffed. I will swear by it that you love me, and I will make an edict that says I love not you.
Will you not eat your word?
He tries again. With no source that can be devised to it, I protest I love thee.
Why, then God forgive me.
What offence, sweet Beatrice?
You have stayed there in a happy hour. I was about to protest I loved you.
And do it with all thy heart.
I love you with so much of my heart that none is left to protest.
Come, bid me do anything for thee.
Kill Claudio.
Not for the whole world.
You kill me to deny it. Farewell.
Tarry, sweet Beatrice.
I am gone, though I am here. There is no love in you. Nay, I pray you, let me go.
Oh, tarry, good Beatrice, by this hand, I love thee.
Use it for my love some other way than swearing by it.
Think you in your soul the Count Claudio hath wronged Hero?
Yea, as sure as I have a thought or a soul.
Enough. I am engaged. I will challenge him. I will kiss your hand, and so I leave you. And off he goes to challenge Claudio. Now you'll notice towards the end there, you see, after this moment of great passion where he says, do anything for thee, and all the rest of it, with all thy heart. I love thee by this hand. And then she says, all right, do the job for thee. He then becomes official. He's now an officer for her. And he switches from thee back to you again in order to show he's taking on this special responsibility. There is always an atmosphere change, a temperature change between the use of thou and you, whatever the play. And you can't miss it because there are 14,000 instances of thou in the plays. And it's always turning up on virtually any page. So keep an eye out.
The only time that Beatrice uses thou is when she's alone and talking to herself about Benedict. That's the only time she calls him thou.
So that's one example of listening to the play perhaps in a way that you haven't thought to listen to it before. But you know, it's not just the actual words that people notice when they're speaking Shakespearean, sometimes without realizing it. It's often the way in which they adapt the words to suit themselves. So you take some of the most famous lines from Shakespeare, and you find suddenly other people using them, but in different ways, but harking back to Shakespeare all the time. And this is quite important actually in the ELT context, because you'll hear these sorts of phrases used in newspapers and magazines and everyday speech, and unless you know the origin, you really wouldn't know what was going on at all. So take one of the most famous ones, for example, in Richard II. There's a point where Bolingbroke, who is coming back from exile, he's been exiled by the king, and he comes back and he wants to have a revolution to take over, essentially. He's going to become Henry IV in due course. But his uncle, the Duke of York, is disgusted at this, because you can't take over from a king. That's absolutely horrible. The king is God. And so he's a bit upset when Bolingbroke comes along and kneels before him and says, "My noble uncle."
Show me thy humble heart and not thy knee, where duty is deceivable and false.
"My gracious uncle."
Grace me no grace, nor uncle me no uncle.
There we are. Grace me no grace, nor uncle me no uncle. Two nouns, grace and uncle, being used as verbs, to grace and to uncle somebody. This is actually very common in modern English as well. A little boy coming up to a mother at bedtime says, "You'll give me another biscuit."
I'll biscuit you if you don't get off to bed right now.
Yeah, she'll biscuit me. I mean, that's a sort of modern example. But grace me no grace, nor uncle me no uncle. That phrase has become part of English language consciousness. So a little later on, you find in Romeo and Juliet, somebody saying, "Thank me no thankings, and proud me no prouds." More uses of the noun as a verb. Or in Beaumont and Fletcher's play, a little later, you hear,
Vow me no vows.
and Henry Fielding in Tom Thumb says, "Petition me no petitions."
And Tennyson's Idioms of the King, diamond me no diamonds.
And then there's a website collection of poetry, isn't there, which is,
Poem me no poems.
and a punk rock group was formed in 2001, and they called themselves But Me No Buts. You see, that's a good example. If you encountered that name, But Me No Buts, what would you make of it? You wouldn't be able to make anything of it unless you knew the origin. Or to take the most famous speech of all, which you'll hear in a few minutes' time in a different connection, "To be or not to be." That's the one that achieves greatest publicity around the world. And think of all the context. We've just taken, half a dozen examples from recent magazines and newspapers, and you hear this one.
To pay or not to pay?
That was from The Spectator. It was an article about whether you should pay or not pay in order to get into a tennis match. Or this one.
To copy or not to copy?
That was an article about photocopying in schools.
To breed or not to breed?
That was an article on population control.
To script or not to script?
That was one on computer programming. And so we could go on and on.
To clone or not to clone?
To diet or not to diet.
To fight or not to fight?
My favourite one is from The Simpsons. Homer at one point says, going into a bar and wondering what to drink, he says, 2 beers or not 2 beers? I love that one. More on Hamlet in just a moment, but first, this is a privileged evening for you, whether you realise it or not. Because this evening you are going to hear the world premiere performance of a forthcoming play of mine, a crime story which I spent many years writing. It's a story about a murder, and the interesting thing is that every line in the play is an Shakespearean idiom, you see, so all the idioms that Shakespeare introduced into the language are part of this play. I haven't got time to do the whole play. I'll give you an extract from Act 8, Scene 33, which is towards the beginning of the play, where the stage policeman, the policeman who's investigating the murder, is talking to a journalist about who done it. Now, because you may not know the origin of all the idioms, I'm afraid I'm going to have to alter the poetic quality of the play a little bit by interpolating the source of the play as we go along. We'll do the parts as dramatically as we can, but do forgive the footnotes that will appear. But you need to know that all of these idioms come from Shakespeare. So, the Crack of Doom it is called.
I am the policeman. Our Lord and Master,
All's well that ends well.
has seen better days.
As you like it.
Says he hasn't slept a wink.
Cymbeline.
Found a woman's body in his office last night, he did.
A murder?
Without a doubt, foul play.
Hamlet.
Dead as a doornail.
Henry V.
Horrible sight it was. Beggared all description.
Antony and Cleopatra.
Really set my teeth on edge.
Henry IV. Any theories about who done it?
Well, I thought it was early days.
Troilus and Cressida.
But as good luck would have it,
Mary White of Windsor.
we got the murderer. Caught him myself, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Oh, yes. When you hear it, you'll laugh yourself into stitches.
Twelfth Night.
You might say it was a foregone conclusion.
Othello.
Oh, yes.
Well, who was it?
The chief constable himself.
I don't believe it.
Oh, yes, we got him at one fell swoop.
Macbeth.
I said to him, the game is up.
Cymbeline.
Tell the truth and shame the devil.
Henry IV.
Well, to give the devil his due,
Henry V.
he knits his brows,
Henry VI.
says, what the dickens.
Mary White of Windsor.
I better make a virtue out of necessity.
Two Gentlemen of Verona.
I see you voiced me with my own retard.
Hamlet.
Well, I just stood there with bated breath.
Merchant of Venice.
Why did you do it? I asked him. There was neither rhyme nor reason, he says.
As you like it.
I've been in such a pickle.
Tempest.
I'm a blinking idiot.
Merchant of Venice.
Playing fast and loose.
King John.
Living in a fool's paradise.
Romeo and Juliet.
Wanting too much of a good thing.
As you like it.
More fool you, I says.
King of the Shoe.
Surely you know, in the end, truth will out.
Merchant of Venice.
Then he breaks down. All his excuses just melt into thin air.
No, Tempest.
Love is blind, he says.
Merchant of Venice.
That's my downfall. Green-eyed jealousy.
Merchant of Venice.
She was a tower of strength to me.
Richard III.
I had to be cruel only to be kind.
Hamlet.
He was more in sorrow than in anger.
Hamlet. Sounds as if he was more sinned against than sinning. King Lear, I like to spread the good lines around my characters. Appreciate it.
Be that as it may,
Henry VI.
he was the devil incarnate.
Titus Andronicus.
He didn't fool me. He knows how to keep a good tongue in his head.
The Tempest.
I was having none of that. Good riddance, I says.
Troilus and Cressida.
I don't stand on ceremony.
Julius Caesar.
Don't like all that pomp and circumstance.
Othello.
I've been dancing attendance here for too long, I says.
Richard III.
I'm not budging an inch, I says.
Teddy of the Shrew.
You've made us all a laughing stock, I says.
Merry Wives of Windsor.
That's the be-all and end-all of it.
Macbeth.
I hope he stays in jail to the crack of doom.
Macbeth again. Jolly good show.
What fair play?
Troilus and Cressida.
And to the manner born, as you might say.
And with that Hamletian observation, we perhaps should end this extract from our play within a play. We could have gone on with about 40 or more expressions available to us.
No.
But brevity, as you know, is the soul of wit. So let's leave that there. And proceed to the final discovery of the evening. Another very momentous moment for you all, for me too, actually. In fact, I'm so moved by this final example that I don't quite know how to behave. Always brings tears to my eyes. You see, we're always, we scholars of Shakespeare, are looking, hoping that one day new manuscripts will appear, new versions, new plays, even lost plays might turn up. And Hamlet has always been one of the cases where we've expected to discover something new. And just a few years ago, I had that great good fortune. I was walking around Stratford-upon-Avon at the new place, the house where Shakespeare, which she built, is now in ruins, of course. I was walking around the garden and tripped and fell full length onto the floor. And as I was lying there, I looked down an old culvert, and there inside was a manuscript. And I reached in and pulled it out. It was wrapped in some very careful covering, as you might imagine. It was a manuscript. I opened it, could not believe my eyes. It was a manuscript of the first edition of Hamlet. Hamlet, as you know, was published in 1600. This was dated 1598. And it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt what we had always believed, and that is that Shakespeare suffered from octoliterophilia. Octoliterophilia is an obsession with the letter H, an absolute obsession with the letter H. Several of us scholars had always believed this, but we never had any evidence for it. Here was the evidence. Notice what had led us to expect this evidence in the first place. Shakespeare lived on Henley Street in Stratford, begins with an H. His schoolteacher was a Mr. Hunt, begins with an H. His younger sister Joan married a Mr. Hart, begins with an H. His uncle was called Henry. He married Anne Hathaway. His daughter Susanna was married to John Hall. One of his children, one of his twins, he called Hamlet. And if you want any more evidence, why on earth would you call plays Henry IV, Part 1, Henry IV, Part 2, Henry V, Henry VI, Part 1, Henry VI, Part 2, Henry VI, Part 3, Henry VIII. This is getting silly. Only if you had an obsession with the letter H would you go so far. Now, in order to illustrate the point, let us draw a contrast between the two versions of the play. We'll just give you a short extract, an abridged extract, because there isn't time to do much, of the most famous part of Hamlet, using the version that you know. And then we'll give you the real version. And I think you'll see the immense deterioration in the later version. It begins, of course. Do you remember the point where the king has set up Ophelia to meet Hamlet in the lobby because Hamlet is pretending to be mad and they don't know why, they think he is mad. Hamlet comes on and Ophelia then shortly comes to meet him, and Hamlet does his famous speech. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we are shuffled off this mortal coil would give us pause. Soft you now, the fair Ophelia. Nymph, in thy orisons be all my sins remembered.
Good, my lord. How does your honour for this many a day?
I humbly thank you. Well.
My lord, I have remembrances of yours that I have longed to redeliver. I pray you now receive them.
No, not I never gave you aught.
My honoured lord, you know right well you did. And with them words of so sweet breath composed as made the things more rich. Their perfume lost, take these again. There, my lord.
Are you honest?
My lord.
Are you fair?
What means your lordship?
I did love you once.
Indeed, my lord, you made me believe so.
You should not have believed me. I loved you not.
I was the more deceived.
Get thee to a nunnery. Why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners? Go thy ways to a nunnery.
Oh, what a noble mind is Hero's throne. The courtiers, soldiers, scholars, eye, tongue, sword, the expectancy and rose of the fair state, the glass of fashion and the mould of form, the observed of all observers, quite down. Oh, woe is me to have seen what I have seen, see what I see.
That's the version you know. Not bad, as poetry goes, really. You know, reasonable, sort of out of 10, give it what, sort of 6, 7 out of 10. This is the real version. It's a play, a version of a play, in which every word begins with the letter H. Every word illustrating Shakespeare's obsession. Hamlet comes on. Halt, harakiri. Have harakiri. Headache. Heart stop, halts, heartaches, hardships. However, hazardous behaviour, hereafter hintless, hindsight hidden, humans hesitate. Hello. Herself.
Hello, hail, hearty.
Oh, hail, hail, hail.
Here's haikus.
Hardly Hamlet's haikus.
Hamlet's heartfelt haikus.
Haven't handed haikus.
Have.
Haven't.
Have.
Ha, ha. You're not taking this seriously. Ha, ha. Honest?
Huh?
Harlot.
Heavens!
Hypocrite. Head holy housewards. Get into a nunnery. Head holy housewards. Hastily.
Help, Hamlet, heavens!
Harlots. Hamlet's whore mad. Hysterical. Halt. Hymenal happenings. Honeymoons. Head holy housewards. High.
Hamlet's haywire. Head hintless. High-minded horse sense hijacked. Horrid humiliation. Heartbroken.
Oh. Well, I detect from some of the faces that you do not actually believe that this text is genuine.
Oh, there's only 2 explanations.
Only 2 explanations. Either it is genuine, or some crazed linguist spent hundreds of hours trying to reconstruct the text of the play with every word beginning with a letter H. I know what I do. If you want to see the whole text of the whole play, you'll find it on my website called The H Quarto. It was originally discovered, notice I say discovered, for the Globe's anniversary in 2005. So there we are. Well, that's that then.
Will you go, Cuz?
Oh, have with you. Fare you well.
God be with you. But first let us take a ceremonious leave and a loving farewell of our several friends.
Oh, right. Ta-ra.
Oh, you can do better than that. Speaking Shakespearean, remember?
Oh, yeah. Fare you well.
Hmm.
Adieu.
Yeah.
With all my love, I do commend me to you.
I commend you to your own content.
Drink a health for me, for I must leave, and farewell to you all.
Once more adieu. Be valiant and speed well.
And thus, I seal my truth and bid adieu. Well, farewell. I'm in great haste now.
Farewell until I meet thee next.
Farewell, and let your haste commend your duty.
I'll wait upon your lordship. Look, you've done two kings. It's my turn now.
Women. Do you know that in Shakespeare's English, the word women was also pronounced woman? We may go wanton with this fond delay.
Once more adieu.
Come, let's away.
Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Away, away. No more words. Thank you.
I wish to thank you for coming and for celebrating our 20th birthday with us. So in the name of all Cooper members, thank you very much.